Welcome to My Existential Crisis.
Hello! Sorry, go ahead.
Wasn't expecting you to...
Sorry.
The podcast where we talk about all the things that give us, you guessed it, an existential crisis. I'm Hailey Guffrey.
I'm Madison Epley.
And we gotta get better at doing this intro.
Yep.
I never know where to go from there.
We'll figure it out.
All right, Madison, how are you doing?
I'm doing really great. I'm a little sleepy today, but I'm having a good week. The apartment, I think one more weekend of like final touches and decorating and the apartment will be complete. So I'm very excited about that. Next weekend, I'm going to get my spare bed. So you'll have a place to stay.
Yay.
By next weekend.
Nice. Good.
Yes. But yeah, not much to report. What about you? How have you been? How's renovating going? Renovating. That's not that weird.
The destruction period is almost over. I'm pretty sure. Actually, it might be over. We tore out the carpets. We took out the countertop. We tore down the walls. It's all like, there's a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yay!
I'm very ready for it to be over. Very ready for it to be finished. But yeah, it's almost done. It is almost done. Yeah, there's nothing really like going on. We have a cabin trip this weekend.
Ooh.
It's a D&D cabin trip.
That sounds fun.
It is. It's our second annual D&D cabin trip. I'm excited. Seeing Anastasia next week for the second time.
Oh my gosh, that's so exciting.
I'm very excited about that. But yeah, everything's going pretty good, you know?
Awesome. I love to hear that. Oh, I wanted to mention that I apologize, but I don't apologize for the amount of curse words I use on this platform. Someone mentioned it to me, and I was like, it's marked explicit, so you get what you get. But yeah, so if that's not your thing, sorry. But I'm not gonna stop, I guess.
Fair enough.
Yeah. I didn't used to swear like
no.
I do now.
Oh my gosh, is this the story you want me to tell?
Yes, it is.
Oh my god.
Because it's iconic. It is iconic. But no, I didn't used to swear at all. I was very, not that I was against swearing, but I just didn't want it to come out of my mouth. I love when everybody else swore. I was rooting for you to swear, but I was just like, no, I can't swear. So like all through high school, even like part of college, I don't think I swore. I don't know when I started swearing religiously, but
religiously.
I mean, that's kind of what I do now. But yeah, so all through high school, I would not swear. I think like my first year of college, I would not really swear that much, and then it just kind of all came tumbling out one day, and it never stopped.
So the first time I ever heard Madison swear, we were in the teacher's lounge trying to steal Rice Krispie treats out of a vending machine.
Yes. For the record, I did not have much money as a child, and as a child, I mean as a teenager, and
everybody was
Rice
doing
Krispie
it.
treats. Yeah, everybody was doing it. Everybody was stealing stuff out of the vending machine.
Yeah, it was literally like that was a point in time, a period of time where we just wreaked absolute havoc on that teacher's lounge.
Havoc.
Someone took a meter long
oh
ruler.
My gosh, I forgot about this.
And put an open bottle of Mountain Dew on the table and swung at it, and that's just one of the many
instances of what happened in that teacher's lounge. But we would basically every day after school that we had rehearsal, because we'd stay late for rehearsal, we wouldn't have dinner. We'd be hungry, so we'd take some snacks from the vending machine. Don't judge me, or do judge me, I don't care, it's whatever. Anyway,
Madison is a very long person. got long arms, long legs, long everything. She's very, very tall. And so I'm a very short, kind of stout person, so my arm was not going up there. But she shoved her arm up the vending machine, and all was well, or so we thought.
And I will say, the reason why it was so much trouble is because we had been stealing Rice Krispie treats for days. And they
were so far behind. They were so backed
far back. It was like the last 3.
She got one, and she is elbow deep in this vending machine, right? And she gets stuck in this vending machine. Her elbow is all the way in there. She gets stuck. She starts pulling. And she starts freaking out, and she just starts going, shit. And I'm dying because I've never heard Madison swear. Her arm is stuck in the vending machine. This is the funniest thing to ever happen to me. I tell her I'm going to go get help, and she grabs me with her free arm, and she's like, you're not going to leave me here. You're not going to leave me. And I'm like, what?
You can't leave me.
And I'm like, oh, okay. Like, I'm not doing anything. I'm basically just sitting there watching. I'm not helping. I'm not pulling on her. I'm not doing anything. There's nothing I can do. So I tried to do the only thing I could think of, which was to go get someone else who maybe could do something. And she yelled at me. So I sat there. I didn't
want someone to walk in on me elbow deep in a vending machine stealing Rice Krispie treats. Because then the jig is up. It's over.
She decides she's gonna jimmy her arm in a little more, maybe get it in a little more, and then pull it out. No, she gets stuck shoulder deep in this vending machine. And that's when the real panic starts to set in. And that's when she's just like, shit. She's screaming at me. And I'm like, I don't know what you want me to do here. And then finally, she pulls her arm out. I still don't know how she did it. She finally gets her arm out, and she just goes, fuck! And it was the funniest thing that has ever...
The vending machine was giving birth to my arm, and
it was truly...
I just screamed, fuck.
It was so funny. It was truly one of the funniest things I ever witnessed, and I'm so glad I was there for that, because it was great.
I'm so glad you were there, too. And I got the Rice Krispie treat.
Yes, you did.
I did.
Indeed, you did.
I earned that Rice Krispie treat.
You did, and I think you, ate it in, a matter of seconds.
I did.
You were like, this is mine. And I was like... What a queen. And then I walked out and I told everybody. It was so funny. And she was like, stop telling people I got my arm stuck in the vending machine. And I was like, it was so funny, you don't understand. I'm sorry that happened to you, but it's so funny. And she was
it's really funny.
Cranky. And I was
cranky. I was really mad because, I didn't want anyone to, because I was, not that I'm not a goody two shoes now.
She was.
I guess.
She was a goody two shoes in high school.
I was very much a goody two shoes. I didn't want I was afraid that a teacher would hear and get me in, and I would get in trouble because I was stealing. Because I had overheard I don't know if I told you this. I had overheard the teachers talking about it, that they had noticed that the Rice Krispie treats were going missing along with other various snacks. And one of the teachers was really pissed because they put money in the vending machine, not seeing how far back the Rice Krispie treats were, and they paid for one and they didn't get one.
Oh yeah, because I didn't even think about that because you couldn't,
because it would just spin forward and nothing would come out because I had taken it. Yeah, so I heard them really pissed about it, and so I was, because it was it was news now at this point. It was undercover teacher news, and I didn't want them to know it was me.
Yeah, they didn't have, I think we checked religiously, but they didn't have cameras in there.
There were no cameras.
Yeah, we checked all the time.
They did put cameras in there after this. Not only did they put cameras in there after this, but they also changed the vending machine out completely so you couldn't reach up in it. You could not go elbow deep in this vending machine. It had a block in it.
Yeah, it was...
But yeah.
A mess.
But yeah, I for as much of a goody two shoes and a by the book person I was, I did some questionable things, I guess. I don't know. So the one time I was in 8th grade, and my friend and I decided it would be a great idea to go for a very, 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 very long walk, basically out all day long walk in 36-degree weather.
Oh my God.
When it was raining, which eventually turned into slush, and we didn't have coats, we didn't have boots. I was wearing ballet flats as my signature look, and we thought this would be a great idea. I also had a skirt on and tights. For some reason, we thought this was a good idea. So, like 20 minutes in, I knew it was a bad idea, but I didn't want to go back and ask for a hoodie, and I didn't want to go back and be like that person who's like, it's too cold, because I'm always too cold. So I was like, I'll just suck it up. It'll be a quick walk. It's fine. It was not a quick walk. We walked the entire way around town. I don't even know where we went to this day. We went we ended up stopping at one of our friends' house and knocked on the door to ask for boots and winter coats, because it was hour 2 at this point and we were miserable. And so as soon as we knocked on the door, it was not the right time. There was arguing going on, and it was just the worst time to walk into somebody else's house. That's what we did, asking for help. So they actually turned us away, we can't help you. And we just kept walking because we didn't know what to do. So eventually we stopped at Dairy Queen for ice cream to warm us up, and then we carry on our way, trying to wait for the rain to pass. A car pulls up next to us on the way home. This is probably hour 4 that we're in. Hour 4, maybe 5, that we are just drenched in my feet are soaked. My ballet flats are soaked. It's like I'm walking on nothing. I can't feel my feet. This car pulls up next to us, and I don't know who this person is. And he just asks, do you guys want to ride?
Oh no.
And I look at my friend, and she's like, come on. And I'm like, what do you mean? What do you mean, come on? And she's like, come on, it's fine. And I'm like, no, it's not fine. And I don't know this person. And as far as I know, you don't know this person. So I hesitantly get in the car, and
Madison.
I know. Hailey.
I've never heard. This is, for all of you listening, this is the first time I'm hearing about any of this. Continue.
I know. I never tell anybody this because I know how dumb it sounds. So I get in this car. I am freezing. But I am just so happy to be out of the cold weather and the rain. But I am on edge because I don't know who this person is. This is a stranger danger. And I'm in this car. So the entire car ride, which is probably 15 minutes, it's pretty quiet. There is some small talk between this man and my friend, but not much that would give me much insight as to they know each other. It was just it was just, I was freaking out. So the entire car ride, I was planning what I would do if this person attacked. My foot was ready to kick his face if he was gonna come out. My hand was on the door thing, ready to open it and run. I was prepared. You would have been so proud of me. But it turned out he was an assistant coach for soccer, and they just didn't know each other that well.
Oh, okay. Well, still.
But I didn't know this man, so I didn't learn this until we got out of the car, and I'm like, that could have been really bad. We got in a car with a stranger, and he took us to your address that you just gave to him.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And then I sat on the vent in her house to heat my body up because I was so cold.
What's the Madison?
Yeah.
What is the highest profile disappearance you can think of?
The highest profile disappearance?
Yes.
Amelia Earhart?
Yeah, that's a good one. This isn't that. On Christmas Eve, December 24th in 1945, a fire destroyed the Sodder residence in Fayetteville, West Virginia.
I literally almost did this, Hailey. I am not even kidding you.
I beat you to it. At the time, it was occupied by George Sodder, his wife Jenny, and 9 of their 10 children. During the fire, George, Jenny, and 4 of the 9 children escaped, but the bodies of the other 5 children have never been found. Surviving Sodder family believed for the rest of their lives that the 5 missing children survived. Now, what do you know about the Sodder children?
I remember hearing a podcast about it a while ago. As you tell me, I'll remember more of it, but right now I couldn't tell you anything besides, like, the basics.
Okay.
Like, that they were, I think they were, like, a wealthy family, and some people might have thought that they were, like, kidnapped for ransom money, but that doesn't make sense because other ones, like, survived.
Background for the situation. George Sodder was born in Italy, and he immigrated to the United States at 13 years old, and he married a woman named Jenny Cipriani, who also immigrated from Italy. So this is like they're both, like, fresh off the boat Italian. George had a lot of strong opinions about many subjects, including Benito Mussolini.
That's right.
Who he was strongly against, and this led to some pretty strong arguments with other members of the immigrant community in the area, including a man who claimed to be a life insurance salesman, who told George, after his spiel was, like, turned away, like, oh, we don't want your insurance, he said to George, your house will go up in smoke, and your children are all going to be destroyed.
Not a good look. Saying
this is because all of the dirty remarks he had been making about Mussolini. So, keep that in mind.
Keeping it in mind.
What was that about? On Christmas Eve in 1945, the telephone rang at 12:30 a.m. Jenny, the mother, woke and went downstairs to answer it. She didn't recognize the voice on the phone, and she assumed that the caller just reached a wrong number, and she remembered the woman had a weird laugh, and when she returned to bed, she noticed that the lights downstairs were still on, and the curtains weren't drawn, which are 2 things that her children normally did when they stayed up later than their parents, which they had done that night to celebrate the festivities. She closed the curtains, turned out the lights, and went back to bed. 1 a.m., Jenny was awakened again by the sound of an object hitting the house's roof, and then a rolling noise. She didn't hear anything else after this, so she just kind of went back to sleep. And then a half hour later, she woke up again, smelling smoke. The room that George used for his office was on fire. Jenny woke him, and he in turn woke the older sons. Both parents and 4 of their children, Marion, Sylvia, John, and George Jr., escaped the house. They called to the children upstairs, but heard no response. They couldn't go up there as the stairway itself was already in a flame. John said in his first police interview after the fire that he went up to the attic to alert his siblings sleeping there, though he later changed his story to say that he only called up there and didn't actually see them. All efforts to find aid and rescue the children were complicated. The phone didn't work, which we know
makes
just
it difficult.
Hours before it did indeed work. So Marion had to run to a neighbor's house to call the Fayetteville Fire Department.
Could it have been because of the fire? Could the fire have caused the phone to not work?
Possibly. It depends on where the fire is, I think.
Okay.
And where the phone is relative to the fire. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yes.
I think if it's, close enough where the wires get all crossed and things like that, then I guess it could have to do something with that, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
But when a driver on the nearby road also saw the flames and called from a nearby tavern, they couldn't reach the operator. So, finally someone was able to get a hold of the fire department, and despite the fire station being only 2.5 miles away from the Sodder family home, it took the fire crew 7 hours.
Fuck. A snail could go faster than that.
Yeah. By the time they reached the house was ashes. It was gone. There was no saving it. They told the Sodders they didn't find any bones, which would have been expected if the other children had been in the house as it burned.
Yeah.
According to another account, they did find a few bone fragments and internal organs, but chose not to tell the family. But it's also been noted that by modern fire professionals that their search was cursory at best.
Okay.
Nevertheless, they believe that the 5 children unaccounted for had died in the fire, suggesting it had been hot enough to burn their bodies completely.
Well, that's the thing, because it takes so much heat to completely destroy a body. Like the bone, even if you were to like just light a body on fire with like gasoline, the bones wouldn't disintegrate. You would destroy the fat and the tissue and whatnot, but the bones would still be left.
The cremation process, which is what would need to occur here in order for them to just be nothing but like ash and whatever.
Yeah.
The cremation process usually occurs between 1400 and 1600 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yes.
But there is evidence that the hottest a house fire can get is over 2500 degrees.
And it was 1400 you said it needed to be at?
1400 to 1600 is the cremation process where the degree level is kept. But
how long would that take? And is that normal for a house? Like, I feel like that's not, like, I get the hottest recorded might be that hot, but I feel like that's not typical for a house fire, even if it was burning for 7 hours.
An average house fire burns at a temperature of 1100 degrees.
Yeah.
It takes between 3 to 4 hours to cremate a body. So, if you think about it, and this is gonna sound awful, but these are also, like, kids.
They're smaller.
The youngest is 6. The oldest is 14. Like, it's not going, because it depends on the mass of the body. It depends on the power of the flame, the heat of the flame. So if this house burned for at least 45 minutes, and it took them 7 hours to come and do any kind of search. So, I mean, it is possible.
Yeah.
It's very possible that it did happen that way. That they did, unfortunately, just perish in the fire. But I think what keeps the family from believing that is the circumstances that followed after the fire. Death certificates were issued for the 5 children December 30th. The local newspaper claimed that all the bodies had been found, but then also said that only part of one body was recovered. And it was very...
Well, journalism at the time, you could literally say anything and nobody would care.
Local coroner convened an inquest which held that the fire was an accident caused by faulty wiring, and among the jurors was the man who had threatened George that his house would be burned and his children destroyed.
Not a good look.
No, not a good look at all. Not long after the fire, as the family tried to move on with their lives and get over this tragedy, they started to question all of the official findings about the fire. They wondered why, if it had been an electrical problem, why did the family's Christmas lights remain on throughout the fire's early stages? Power should have gone out.
Yeah.
They found a ladder that had been missing from the side of the house on the night of the fire at the bottom of an embankment 75 feet away.
Oh, shit.
A repairman told the Sodders that the house's phone line had not been burned through in the fire like they initially thought, but it had been cut by someone.
Oh, fuck.
A man...
That changes everything.
Yeah. So that answers the question about, like, well, why wouldn't the fire have caused it? Yeah, I guess the fire could have caused it, but also fire is not going to cut through it. Neighbors noticed a man stealing a block and tackle from the property around the time of the fire. This man was identified and arrested, and he admitted to the theft and claimed he had been the one who cut the phone line, but he denied having anything to do with the fire. No record identifying the suspect exists, and no one knows why he would have wanted to cut any utility lines in the Sodder house while stealing the block and tackle.
Like, oh, I didn't set the fire. I just cut their phone line. Coincidentally, on the night of the fire.
Jenny also had trouble accepting the idea that all traces of the children's bodies had been burned in the fire. Many of the household appliances had been found, still recognizable even, along with... I was
just about to ask. Like, there would be other things that would be also disintegrated if the bodies were disintegrated.
Yeah. She contrasted the results of the fire with a newspaper account of a similar house fire that she read around the same time that killed a family of 7. Skeletal remains of all the victims were reported to have been found. Jenny took up burning small pieces of animal bones to see if they would be completely consumed, and none ever were.
Love Jenny. Love them. Love her so much.
Jenny contacted a crematorium who told her that human bones remain even after bodies are burned at 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit for 2 hours, which was longer and hotter than the house fire could have been. So, some questions are getting answered. I was just trying to make you think.
I appreciate the suspense you're building here.
Thank
Great
you.
Storytelling.
Some people suggest that the wrong number phone call from to the Sodder house may have also somehow been connected to the fire. But investigators said they located the woman who had made the call, and she confirmed it had been a wrong number on her part.
Okay.
New developments.
Oh, as of?
Subsequent. So not long after.
Okay.
Like, this is still, like... This is early 1946. So they had planned to build a memorial for their children on the land where the house used to be. A memorial garden. But
so sad.
Further developments in early 1946 kept the family believing that the children were maybe alive.
Okay.
Evidence came up indicating that the fire had not started in the electrical fault and was instead set deliberately. The driver of a bus that passed through Fayetteville late Christmas Eve said he had seen some people throwing balls of fire at the house.
Oh, shit.
A few months later, when the snow had melted, Sylvia found a small, hard, dark green, rubber ball-like object in the brush nearby. And if you remember...
Could that have been... Yep.
Jenny heard something...
On the roof.
On the roof. And George took a look at this object that Sylvia had found and said it looked like a pineapple bomb or some other incendiary device used in combat. But unfortunately, there was no way to prove where the fire started, because the family believed that it started on the roof, and that by that, like, hand grenade, but there's no way to
just no way to prove that.
Other witnesses came forward saying they saw the Sodder children, the missing Sodder children themselves. One woman claimed that she had been watching the fire from the road and saw some of them peering out of a passing car while the house was burning.
Oh, shit.
Another rest stop between Fayetteville and Charleston said she had served them breakfast the next morning. The Sodders hired a private investigator named C.C. Tinsley.
C.C. Tinsley!
C.C. Tinsley.
At your service!
Man, BuzzFeed Unsolved already makes a joke about C.C. Tinsley, but it's so
Is
good.
Really?
Oh, yeah, but it's great. That's a great name.
It's a great name. It's a great name.
Man, C.C. Tinsley, on the case.
On the case.
They hired a man named C.C. Tinsley from the nearby town.
Oh, a man.
I'm assuming it's a man.
That makes the most sense for the time. I just heard C.C. and was like, this woman.
Charles Crocker Tinsley.
Yeah, you know what? Let's go with Charles Crocker. I like that. I like that a lot.
Okay, so they hired Charles Crocker Tinsley, and they hired him to look into the case. Tinsley informed the family that the insurance salesman who had threatened George over his anti-Mussolini sentiments had been on the coroner's jury that ruled the fire an accident. He also heard rumors around Fayetteville that despite the report to the Sodders that no remains had been found, the fire department had found a heart, which later was packed into a metal box and secretly buried. What a weird thing to find. Like,
Just a heart.
Yeah, just a heart. Nothing else. Just a heart.
No bones, no organs, just a heart. And also, to keep that from the family, that's so messed up.
Yeah. That would be a really weird thing to find. If that was what they found.
Oh, shit. You got me again.
I did get you again. So the man who had told them, his name is Morris, the man, Morris, who had told them that there had been no remains found in the ashes, and had lied about this heart that he found, he apparently confessed this to a local minister, and the minister went to George and confirmed it to him. And when George and Charles Crocker Tinsley went to Morris and confronted him with this information, Morris agreed to show the two where he had buried the metal box. When they dug it up, they took it to a local funeral director, who, after examining it, told them it was just fresh beef liver that had never even been exposed to fire.
What the fuck? Wait, what the fuck? Why? What is the point of that?
I don't know.
What? Like, why? Why would you do that?
Later, people said that Morris had afterwards admitted the box with the liver had not come from the fire.
Well, no shit.
But that he had placed it there in the hope that the Sodders would find it and be satisfied that the missing children had indeed died in the fire.
Oh.
So I guess that makes, like, I guess that makes sense.
It makes sense for someone who's not thinking things through completely. But if there's nothing left but, like, oh, the child's heart, but there are, like, no bones, like, I'd be like, who's cooking some meat, you know?
Yeah, like it was weird.
Thinking...
On one occasion, George saw a magazine photo of a group of young ballet dancers in New York City, and one of them looked like his missing daughter, Betty. And he drove all the way to the school where his demands to see the girl himself were refused.
Oh.
He also tried to garner the interest of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI, in investigating what he had started to believe was a kidnapping. FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover responded to his letters personally, saying, "Although I would like to be of service, the matter related appears to be of local character and does not come within the investigative jurisdiction of this bureau." He said that if the local authorities requested the bureau's assistance, he would of course direct agents to assist, but the Fayetteville Police and fire departments declined to do so.
That is fucked.
In 1949, so this is about
5 years later?
4.5. It's August.
Okay.
So in August 1949, George is able to persuade Oscar Hunter, a Washington, D.C. pathologist, to oversee a new search through the dirt of the house site. After a very thorough search, artifacts including a dictionary that had belonged to the children and some coins were found, along with several small bone fragments determined to have been human vertebrae.
Okay.
These bones...
5 years later?
Yeah. So the fire department was up to some shady shit. They just said, these kids are dead.
Oh my gosh.
Like, they didn't make it. We took 7 hours to get here. They're dead.
Wow.
He sent the bone fragments to Marshall T. Newman, a specialist at the Smithsonian. And these bone fragments were confirmed to be lumbar vertebrae, which all came from the same person.
Okay.
The report said, since the transverse recesses are fused, the age of this individual at death should have been 16 or 17 years. The top limit of age should be about 22, since the centra, which normally fuse at 23, are still unfused.
But his kids were younger than that.
Indeed, they were. So that was thrown out. The oldest, Maurice, was 14.
Yeah.
Newman added that the bone showed no sign of exposure to flame. And he agreed it was very, very strange that those bones were the only ones found since a wood fire of such short duration would have left full skeletons of all the children behind. The report concluded that the vertebrae had instead most likely come from the dirt that George had used to bulldoze the site. Later, Charles Crocker Tinsley supposedly confirmed that the bone fragments had come from a cemetery in nearby Mount Hope, but could not explain why they had been taken from there or how they came to be at the first site.
A cover-up! Charles Crocker Tinsley on the case.
The investigation and its findings attracted national attention, and West Virginia legislature held 2 hearings on the case in 1950. Afterwards, however, Governor O.K. L. Madison and State Police Superintendent W.E. Burchett told the Sodders the case was hopeless and closed it at the state level. The FBI decided it has jurisdiction as a possible interstate kidnapping, but dropped the case after 2 years of following fruitless leads. The family investigation continues, however. The ever-resilient Sodder family did not give hope. They did not give hope. Okay.
They didn't give hope.
They didn't. No, none of it. It was taken from them and they didn't give it back. The Sodder family did not give up hope. They had flyers printed with pictures of the children offering a $5,000 reward, which in the 1950s, $61,000 today.
Holy moly.
This was later doubled to $10,000, which was like over $100,000.
$100,000. Yeah.
In 1952, they put up a billboard at the site of the house with all the information on it. And at one point, it became a landmark for traffic through Fayetteville.
Oh my gosh.
These efforts soon brought another reported sighting of the children after the fire. Ida Crutchfield, a woman who ran a Charleston hotel, claimed to have seen the children approximately a week afterwards. She said in a statement, "I do not remember the exact date. But the children had come in around midnight with 2 men and 2 women, all of whom appeared to her to be of Italian extraction."
Okay.
When she attempted to speak with the children, this is what she said transpired.
Mm-hmm.
One of the men looked at me in a hostile manner. He turned around and began talking rapidly in Italian. Immediately, the whole party stopped talking to me. She recalled that they left the hotel early the next morning. Investigators today do not, however, consider her story credible, as she had only first seen photos of the children 2 years after the fire, which was 5 years before she came forward. So, George followed up. Go ahead.
Okay, I was just gonna say, like, could maybe her memory just wasn't jogged, but if she had seen it so much earlier, I don't know. I don't know.
I feel like any money talks. So
yeah, that's true. That's true.
It's hard when money gets involved. It's hard to know what to trust.
Money talks, and as you all know,
Hailey listens. Hailey
exactly.
listens very loud. It's very loud and clear that money talks.
Hailey listens very loud.
Shut up. George followed up leads in person. He traveled to areas the tips had come from Missouri to Texas to Florida, all over the place. A woman from St. Louis, Missouri claimed that Martha was being held in a convent there. A bar patron in Texas claimed to have overheard 2 other people making incriminating statements about a fire that happened on Christmas Eve in West Virginia, and nothing really went anywhere. In 1967, George went to the Houston area to investigate another tip. A woman there had written to the family saying that Lewis had revealed his true identity to her one night after having too much to drink. She believed that he and Maurice were both living in Texas somewhere, but George and his son-in-law, Grover Paxton, were unable to speak with her. Police were there to help them find the 2 men she had indicated, but they denied being the missing sons.
I was gonna say, like, why would the sons not come forward? Like, why would they stick with their captors and not want to go back to their family who's been desperately looking for them?
I mean,
publicly?
Part of it has probably something to do with just the threat of...
Yeah,
like,
I get that, but after... Okay, that's, like, I can't say what I would do in that situation, so, like, that's not fair of me to say. But I would just... after all those years, if you're an adult, are you still under their captivity? Are you still facing the same threats?
Probably. I mean...
Maybe, yeah.
You think about it like it's like an abusive relationship almost.
Yeah.
Like it's
yeah. It's unhealthy. It's toxic.
It's hard to leave.
Yeah.
Like, it's, like, if you've been, like, you gotta remember, the youngest was 6.
Yeah. Oh,
so,
that's so heartbreaking. So, like, they would grow up mostly thinking that these people were their family for the most part.
Possibly. I mean, like,
yeah.
And you think about, like, the term grooming is thrown around so frivolously now.
Yeah.
But, like, who really knows what happened to these children? It is very possible in my mind that, like, they were groomed into a certain behavior. They were taught that if you step out of line, if you do this, if you do that, we will hurt you, we'll hurt the rest of your family, we'll finish the job, anything like that. Like, so many different things.
Yeah.
And this is, like, all, like, and if this was all sparking from something regarding the comments that George made about Mussolini, then it's so much bigger than just, like, it could be so much bigger than just, like, some random person. Like, it could be mafia, it could be war criminals. I don't know. Like, maybe that's a stretch, but, like, it's
no, but it's all valid, and it's I shouldn't be, like, again, I'm not in their position. I'm not in that position. I don't know what I would do. I don't know what the conditions are. You can't be like, why didn't they do this? Why didn't you leave your abuser? That's so messed up. That's not what I was trying to do, by the way.
No, I know. I'm
pondering.
I know, and I'm pondering with you about, like, if these children were abducted, like, the severity, like, I can't imagine. There are, like, it's hard. It's really hard. They're
babies.
Yeah, and there are people who go missing for years, and it's the same thing. Like, like teenagers and young adults that go missing for years and are held captive, and it's like, well, why didn't you?
Well, I was just gonna say, there was a story that I heard not too long ago, and it was about this teenage boy who was kidnapped for years, and his parents assumed he was dead, but, you know, always hope for the best. And he was later found, but he said that all the time that he was there, the door was unlocked. He was free to do what he wanted in the house as long as he stayed in the house. And even the captor would leave throughout the day, but he threatened him that, like, if he ever left, he would kill his family. So even that threat alone, even though there was no locks or anything, he was trying to protect his family.
Yeah. Another letter was received by the Sodder family, which included what they believed to be the most credible evidence that, at the very least, their son, Louis, was alive. Louis was 10 years old when the fire occurred. By this point in time, by the time they received this letter, he would have been in his 30s.
Oh.
They received a letter which was postmarked in Central City, Kentucky, with no return address. And inside was a picture of a young man of around 30 with features that strongly resembled Louis'. And on the back was written, Louis Sodder, I love brother Frankie, Lil Boys, A90132 or 35. The family hired another private detective to go to Central City and look into the letter, but he never reported back, and they were unable to locate him afterwards.
What the fuck?
They added this picture to the billboard, but did not talk about, they didn't mention where Central City was or any other kind of information, out of fear that Louis would be harmed.
Yeah.
George admitted to the Charleston Gazette Mail late the next year, the year after. So this is probably in, like, getting closer to the 70s. Yeah. He stated that the lack of information had been like hitting a rock wall. We can't go any further. But he vowed to continue, saying, time is running out for us, but we only want to know. If they did die in the fire, we want to be convinced. Otherwise, we want to know what happened to them. George Sodder died in 1969.
Oh.
Jenny and the surviving children, except John, who never spoke about the night of the fire, except to say that the family should accept what happened and move on with their lives. John was the oldest son. But everyone else continued to seek answers about the missing children. After George's death, Jenny stayed in the family home, put up fencing around it. For the rest of her life, she wore black in mourning and tended the garden at the site of the former house. And after her death in 1989, the family finally took the billboard down.
That's so heartbreaking.
Their surviving Sodder children, who were joined by their own children, continued to publicize the case and investigate leads. They theorized that the Sicilian mafia was trying to extort money from George, and the children may have been taken by someone who knew about the planned arson and said they would be safe if they left the house. They were possibly taken back to Italy.
But then why didn't anybody ever contact them to get the money?
That is one of the questions that's just not answered.
Ugh. I hate it so much.
The children believe that if their siblings survived all those years and were aware that they were looking for them, they may have avoided contact in order to keep them from harm.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Sylvia Sodder Paxton, the youngest of the surviving Sodder siblings, died in 2021.
Wow, so recent.
She said she was in the house on the night of the fire, and she stated it was her earliest memory. She was the last one of the kids to leave home. She experienced the grief for a long time. She believed that her siblings survived that night and assisted with efforts to find them and publicize the case. Her daughter said in 2006, "She promised my grandparents she wouldn't let the story die, that she would do everything she could." And that's really all there is. There's a lot of speculation. There's a lot of there's really just like, there's nothing recent, there's nothing current, there's nothing, like, no one really knows. It's still unsolved. Like,
it breaks my heart so much just for the family, like, holding out hope for so long and trying literally every avenue they could think of, and either being shut down by the local law enforcement or just not being able to get anywhere.
Yeah. And I mean, what sucks a lot is the fact that, like, we will probably never know what happened.
No, we won't.
Almost everyone with any possible information on this case is dead. All of these, I think Betty was the youngest to go missing, and she was 6. That means she was born in, 1939. Right? My math's right?
Yeah, I think so. She would be very...
1939. So
to be very old by now, if she's alive at all.
Yeah, she'd be 84. And then Jenny Irene Sodder, who was 8, would be 86. So, I mean, it's possible, but it's not...
unlikely.
It's not probable. And they were so young when all of this happened that
Well, exactly. You're living if you are still alive today, you're living 70 plus years in a completely different life.
Yeah, it's really sad. This is just kind of one of those things where...
Now I'm bummed out.
Did you say now you're bummed out?
Yeah, now I'm really bummed out.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah, this is truly, I think, one of the only cases that we've talked about that I don't think could be solved.
Mm-mm.
Like,
yeah.
I mean, like, even with, like, Lizzie Borden, like, there's so much, like, genealogy And I don't know, maybe there's some weird...
Maybe there's some technology in the future that we don't know about yet that like, could lead us to an answer. But for this, there's
nothing.
Just like a question mark.
Yeah, there's just a pile of ash somewhere. It's nothing. Like, it's nothing. It's weird, and it's very sad. I wish that if the fire department was going to try and convince the family that their children had just died in the fire, this is gonna sound awful, but I wish they'd try a little bit harder.
Well, yeah, I'd hope they do a better job than throwing a piece of cow liver and a couple of like fresh unburnt vertebrae into the ashes.
Like, they spent so much time the rest of their lives just wondering, and it makes me really sad that they never, like, I think closure. They never got closure. Yeah. I'm someone who believes that closure is so important, and closure is like, it is a necessity. Closure is a necessity to me. And to think about this family losing,
just not having any chance of any kind of closure.
Yeah. Over half of their children just go missing, and they never get any real sense of, I can finally be at peace with this situation. It breaks my heart.
Well, thank you for telling it, even though it bummed me out.
You're welcome. I try.
It's fine. Okay. Well, I've got something that's a little more upbeat. It still involves death, but it is I think you're gonna like it. I was very excited. I just found this. I've never heard of this before. I just found it last night, but I'm very excited to tell you about it. On May 26th, 1828, a teenage boy was found hobbling along the streets of Nuremberg, Germany, speaking in an unintelligible language, wearing strange clothes, and walking with a very distinct gait. His feet were soft, as if he had never walked upon them before, and he could barely see in the sunlight. In his hand was an envelope with 2 letters, the contents of which would baffle police and historians for centuries. Dun, dun, dun. So, the first letter was addressed to the captain of the local cavalry squad, and the heading read, "From the Bavarian border, the place is unnamed, 1828." Apparently from a poor laborer. He's the one who apparently wrote this. The author of the letter said the boy was given into custody as an infant on October 7th, 1812, which was 16 years earlier, and that the boy was instructed in reading, writing, and the Christian religion, but he was never allowed to take a single step out of the house. The letter also stated that the boy wanted to be a cavalryman as his father was, quote, and for the captain to either take him in or hang him, also a quote. It cryptically ended with the author saying, "It would cost me my neck," had the author escorted this boy to Nuremberg himself. In the second letter, it was very short. It was dated in 1812, which was 16 years earlier, apparently from when the boy was given into custody. It was unsigned, but apparently written by his mother or a caretaker. It said that the boy's name was Kaspar Hauser, and he was born on April 30th, 1812, and that his father, a cavalryman, had died and she could no longer care for him. Are you with me so far?
Yes.
Okay. So this shoemaker saw this strange teenage boy, and he took him to the captain. And the boy would only repeat the words, "I want to be a cavalryman as my father was," and "Horse! Horse!"
What? What? Is this real?
Yes,
Did this actually happen?
Yes, it did.
What the hell?
Horse!
Horse indeed. Horse indeed. Okay.
Further questions and demands by the captain were met with either tears from the boy or a firm, don't know.
Don't know.
He was, don't know.
Don't know. That's, you know what? Me. Yeah.
Yeah, don't know.
This, I'm just gonna start running around and like, horse.
Horse, don't know.
I want to be a cavalryman like my father before me.
Oh, okay. So, this boy was taken to the police station where he could write his name.
Okay.
Kaspar Hauser.
Okay, good. He's got that.
Yes. People reported that he moved like a toddler who was just learning how to walk. He showed that he was familiar with money, could say some prayers and read a little bit, but he answered very few questions and his vocabulary seemed to be very limited. He would only speak words and phrases back that were said to him like he was trying to learn them. Mm-hmm. And because he had no records or proof of identification, he was imprisoned as a vagabond, which is you're being put in jail for being homeless, is what that is. So some backstory on who this lad Kaspar Hauser is. Well, for 2 months when he was imprisoned, he stayed in. I practice how to say this. Hold on. He stayed in Lugensland Tower in Nuremberg. It looks like Lugs Island, but it's Lugensland.
You know
Lugensland.
What? Good pronunciation on that. I'm proud of you.
That
sounded good.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Lugensland Tower in Nuremberg Castle is where the boy stayed while he was imprisoned, and the mayor himself reported that the young lad, was making progress. Oh, however, the boy refused all food except for bread and water. He wouldn't eat his veggies, he wouldn't eat his meat, nothing else, just bread and water. So, just reading what's going to come next and you're going to... Okay. So he was brought a lit candle and he stared at it in amazement until he finally tried to grab it and burned himself. Similarly, he was just as fascinated by his own reflection in a mirror that was brought to him, and he tried to grab that as well. Out of curiosity, hearing about this strange young lad, people would come to his cell to just stop and ogle him. But he loved the company. He loved having people come and visit him. So despite what people would say later, he seemed to be in good physical condition, and he could walk well. For example, he walked over 90 steps just to get to his room in the tower. So, he was walking like a toddler before, but he can walk, and he walks just fine. It's a little odd. Despite looking healthy overall, he did seem to be intellectually impaired.
Okay.
People began to gossip that he was a feral child who grew up in the woods and raised himself. Eventually, Kaspar became a ward of the city and was taken in by a professor named Friedrich Dahmer. Under Dahmer's care, Kaspar Hauser seemed to progress rapidly, very quickly learning how to read, write, and speak effectively. And when I say rapidly, I mean within 2 weeks. Now that Hauser was able to communicate, he began to tell what he could remember from his life before. Hauser told of his childhood in solitary confinement in a darkened cell, 6 feet long, 3 feet wide, and 3.5 feet high, not even high enough to stand, with only a straw bed to sleep on and 2 horses and a dog as toys that were carved out of wood.
Oh, I thought these were real. I was like, toys?
No, yeah, they're toys.
I thought they were real, like
horses and a dog.
I thought it was a horse and a dog that he used as toys, and I was like, oh no.
Oh!
I was like,
oh my gosh.
I was very concerned.
Okay, no, there's no animal cruelty in this story.
Okay.
Be relieved. So Hauser said he was given water and bread to eat in the mornings. That was it. And sometimes the water tasted bitter and put him into a deep sleep. After these times, he would awake to his hairs and nails cut, and the straw on his bed changed. He also described a detailed dream where he found himself in an enormous castle with an elaborately dressed woman and a man all in black with a sword. Kind of like Wesley from The Princess Bride.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
If I woke up and Wesley was in my room, I'm not complaining.
Right?
I'm fine with that.
I'm like, this is fine.
I'll be like, if this is how I go, she died doing what she loved. That's all I'm gonna say.
So Dahmer theorized that this just could have been a faint memory of his early life before the prison, this dream. Hauser also claimed the first human he ever saw was a man who visited him not long after his release from this cell. So all this time growing up, he said he never saw anybody. The food and water were put there before he woke up. It would be taken away when he was sleeping, and he'd be put in these deep sleeps. So, like 16 years later, he saw his first person, apparently.
Jeez.
The man was careful to never show his face to him and taught him how to write his own name and say the phrase, "I want to be a cavalryman as my father was."
Yes!
Which he admitted he didn't know what it meant. He noticed that the boy had a talent for drawing, and despite performing more experiments on him, he learned little more about his background.
Why?
Because of his... Yeah.
Do we know why he said horse, or did he just say that?
He just said horse. We don't learn why.
Okay.
Just horse. I think things are going to soon make a little bit more sense in a little bit.
Okay.
I
trust you.
Okay. Because of this wild story, Hauser became a celebrity. Many people believing him to be a prince who was taken from birth and replaced with a dying baby. Books. Sorry, this is not funny. Books, magazine articles, films, and plays have been written about him since. So, skipping forward a little bit, on October 17th, 1829, Hauser was found in the cellar of Dahmer's house with a fresh cut on his forehead. He said that while he was sitting on the toilet on the privy, he had been attacked and hurt by a hooded man who told him, "You still have to die before you leave the city of Nuremberg." Hauser said the man was the same man who brought him to Nuremberg because he recognized his voice. Officials called for a police escort for him and transferred him to the authority of a municipal leader. Okay. 6 months later, on April 3rd, 1830, a pistol went off in Hauser's room in his new residence with the municipal leader. His new escort hurried into his room and found him bleeding on the right side of his head. When Hauser came in, he said that he climbed on a chair to get some books. The chair had fallen, and while trying to catch himself, he mistakenly tore the pistol off the wall and caused the shot to go off. Soon after this, his relationship with his current escort soured, and he was transferred into a different person's care by May. So what's happening here? What is happening? Those were apparent threats on his life, and now we're kind of getting into the nitty-gritty here. Remember those 2 letters that he had on him when he first walked into Nuremberg?
Yes.
Well, they were supposedly written by 2 different people in 2 separate decades, but the handwriting was basically identical. And the letter that was supposed to be written by his mother actually said, quote, "He writes my handwriting exactly as I do," which later led people to believe that Kaspar Hauser himself wrote both of them. In the instance of the razor cut, his blood trail proved that he first fled to the first floor, where his room was, but instead of trying to find his caretakers and supposedly help, he went back downstairs and climbed through a trapdoor into the cellar. Skeptics believe he had inflicted the wound himself with a razor, which he then took back to his room to hide before going back to the cellar. Additionally, this razor incident took place shortly after a quarrel with Dahmer, who had been, quote, come to believe the boy had a tendency to lie.
You can say that again.
So, additionally, this razor incident... Wait, just say the whole thing again?
No, I meant like he had a tendency...
Come to believe the boy had a tendency to lie. Dahmer believed that this boy had a tendency to lie. You with me?
Oh, no, I meant... It was Madison. I meant like, oh, you can say that again.
Oh, I thought you were telling me to say it again.
I was not.
And then you said say it again. I was like, I'm going to say it again, okay? Okay, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I'm so sorry,
It's okay.
Hailey.
It's okay. It's all right.
Okay.
It's fine.
Similar to the case of the razor incident, it was also doubted whether the wound on his head was actually caused by the gunshot. Also similarly, this gunshot incident reported to have been taken place shortly after a quarrel with his municipal leader escort, who scolded him for lying. So now, in May, a month after the gunshot incident, he's staying with a baron. The baron he stayed with would also later complain about Hauser's lying, calling him, quote, full of vanity and spite, and commented on his horrendous mendacity and art of dissimulation. Basically, he's calling him a big fucking liar. In late 1831, a British nobleman named Lord Stanhope took him into custody from the baron, and he spent a lot of money trying to help Hauser figure out where he came from. He even went to the extent that he paid for Hauser to go to Hungary twice, just in the hopes of jogging his memory, because one time Hauser said that he seemed to remember some Hungarian words, and at one point he claimed that the Hungarian countess was his mother. So the Lord's like, okay, we're going to take you there to hopefully jog your memory. He also promised to take him to England at one point. Don't know why, just to take him to England, I guess. On both of these trips, Hauser didn't recognize any of the Hungarian buildings or monuments. And later, a Hungarian nobleman later told Lord Stanhope that he and his son were amused by Hauser's melodramatic behavior. Stanhope later wrote that all of these failed inquiries made him doubt Hauser's credibility, as seems to be the case with everyone he's staying with. In December 1831, Stanhope wanted to get rid of him, so he transferred Hauser to the city of Ansbach to be placed under the care of Johann Georg Meyer. Stanhope continued to pay for Hauser's care for a short time, but he refused to take him to England. He's like, I'll pay for you to stay with this man to get you out of my sight, but you're not going to England. Meyer was a very strict and rigid school teacher who also had a strained relationship with Hauser after growing tired of his excuses and apparent lies. Hauser was very unhappy in his new home because he wasn't getting along with Meyer, and Meyer didn't believe any of his lies. And he was very angry that Stanhope wouldn't take him to England. Hauser also became devastated that his new patron passed away. And unbeknownst to Hauser, his new patron who died had also begun to lose faith in him. A note that was found by him after his death said, Kaspar Hauser is a smart, scheming codger, a rogue, a good-for-nothing that ought to be killed.
Jesus.
But he never told Hauser that. He just kept it to himself. Don't worry.
Well, at least there's that.
Yeah, at least there's that, you know. On December 9th, sorry, I'm thinking, horse! Sorry. On December 9th, 1833, Hauser had a very serious argument with Meyer. Lord Stanhope was set to visit for Christmas, and Meyer said he didn't know how he would face him regarding Hauser. 5 days later, on December 14th, 1833, Hauser came home with a deep stab wound in his chest. He said he was lured into the Ansbach court garden where a stranger stabbed him while giving him a bag. So, a knife in one hand and a bag in the other. Here you go, have both of them. Policemen did search the garden, and they did find a small violet bag which contained a penciled, mirror-written note, which said, this is a quote, "Hauser will be able to tell you quite precisely how I look and from where I am. To save Hauser the effort, I want to tell you myself from where I come, dash, dash. I come from, dash, 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 the Bavarian border, dash, dash, on the river, dash, 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 dash. I will even tell you the name, MLO. Hauser died from the wounds 3 days later. And I'm laughing because inconsistencies in Hauser's account led the Ansbach court to suspect he had stabbed himself and fabricated the tale of him being attacked. The note contained both grammatical and spelling errors, both of which were common for Hauser, who on his deathbed also spoke incoherently of, quote, writing in pencil. Although Hauser was eager that the bag was found in the garden, he never wanted the contents out of it. He just wanted it to be found. And the letter in the bag was folded triangularly.
Yep.
Was folded triangularly. It was folded triangularly. There it is. Go. The way Hauser was known to fold his letters. And forensic examiners agreed the wound could have been self-inflicted, and Hauser had pierced deeper than he intended. Hauser was buried in Ansbach, where the headstone reads, "Here lies Kaspar Hauser, riddle of his time. His birth was unknown, his death mysterious." 1833. A 2005 forensic analysis concluded that it was unlikely the stab in the chest was inflicted exclusively for the purpose of self-damage, but both a suicidal stab and a homicidal act could not be ruled out definitely. To rule out the previous princely rumor of Hauser's heritage, his DNA was even tested in 1998, but it did not match, obviously. And 2 statues were erected in his honor, one depicting him first entering Nuremberg, and the one depicting his fatal stabbing. So, this man made it all up, it would seem, and it could also be the first case of Munchausen, since we can't actually diagnose him, since he is no longer with us. The first case of Munchausen was in the 1950s, but it seemed like anytime anyone would accuse him of lying, he'd be like, "No, I'm not," and hurt himself. And then this time, he went a little too deep. And that is the story of Kaspar Hauser.
Incredible. No notes.
No notes.
Horse.
Horse. I want to be a cavalryman as my father was before me.
I
don't know. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed our stories this week. You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram at MECrisisPod. And if you have a story you'd like us to cover, you can email us at myexistentialcrisispodcast@gmail.com.
Bye.
Bye.